Good morning and happy Thursday from all of us at the Environmental Learning Centers of Connecticut. Welcome back to another Facebook Live. We're here on the Indian Rock Nature Preserve on the covered bridge right next to the Education Farm. And we're going to take a look at a plant that we took a look at back in March when they were first starting to come out. The skunk cabbage. So the skunk cabbage, they really love wetlands, near streams, kind of mucky, muddy areas. They love wet soil. And they are a perennial flowering plant, so they come back year after year. And they're one of the first plants to come up in spring. So they're kind of a telltale sign that spring is coming. They can start coming up as early as late February. But these skunk cabbage, when they first appear, they do not look like this. When skunk cabbage first come up, they look like little purple pods. And those little pods is actually a hood-like leaf called a spathe, which surrounds another structure called a spadix, which is a petalless flower. And as that flower opens up, it's going to allow flies and beetles in to pollinate the flowers. But they're really cool in that in late February, even though there might be snow on the ground and it's still cold, they have this really neat ability to produce their own heat, which allows them to kind of melt snow if it's there. Make sure the soil is warm enough so they can emerge and bloom, even if it's still really cold outside. So they can even warm themselves up to about 70 degrees, even in late February. So now those pod-looking flowers are gone and we're left with these really big leaves. Some of them are coming up on 2 feet long. And not many animals eat the leaves. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Not now, at least. In early spring, we might see bears munching on the small, young leaves, but not so much now when they're big like this. Instead, they're a great place to shelter for spiders and insects. Okay, especially when flies and beetles are going to come down to pollinate. So those spiders love to make their nests in the skunk cabbage and kind of lay in wait for their prey to come by. The skunk cabbage will be green and big and leafy until almost the end of summer. And then the leaves will decay pretty quickly. So the leaves have a really high water content, so there's less plant matter to dry out and decompose. And they'll lose their leaves annually each year, but the plant itself can live upwards of 20 years. We can see here they're really dominating the ground cover, loving the mucky wet soil. We've got some on the opposite side of our bridge here. So they're not in, we've got a big shadow here, but we do have a little stream going by. So they're not in the water itself. They're not going to be in the water. Well, right next to it where it's really muddy and perpetually wet soil. So skunk cabbage, they get their name because when you break the leaves, they do have that foul odor, that skunky smell. And that's also something that makes the plant toxic to eat. So this is not a plant you want to consume. That's why not many animals eat it. But that smell is great for attracting those pollinators, those flies, those carrion flies and beetles. So when that smell travels on the air, it's going to attract those pollinators to the plant. Well, we might have some animals on it like slugs, caterpillars, like I said before, spiders. Gnats are a common little insect that come around to these plants. So we can really see, even though it's only been about 2 months, these plants are coming up on their full size for the season since we last checked in on them. When we first checked in on these plants, the little pod-like, hood-like leaf that was coming out was maybe about 5 inches. Some animals that we see coming through this area, especially with all of the other low ground cover, we have the red-winged blackbird that frequents this area. We'll find squirrels running through here. Chipmunks. We're right next to Indian Lake, so frogs might come up here. Toads. So even though animals are not really eating this plant, it's still dense enough to cover and provide lots of space to hide and have shelter. But skunk cabbage is found across the eastern skunk cabbage. This is the eastern skunk cabbage. Across most of eastern United States up into Canada. On the western side of North America, there's the western skunk cabbage. So this is a plant that you can find at the Indian Rock Nature Preserve, where we are now, at the Barnes Nature Center, where our trails are open sunrise to sunset 7 days a week. And throughout a lot of trails and parks in Connecticut. All you need is really wet soil. So if you go anywhere where you have a stream or a pond or a lake, you will most likely be finding skunk cabbage. You can hear the mourning dove in the background. So since springtime is a part of the year where we have tremendous amounts of plant growth and animal reproduction, it's really interesting to see how these plants are changing over time, even in a matter of, it could be as short as days, or weeks or months. So something you can do at home, if you have access to a backyard, or you can even do this in your public open space, is if you notice a plant starting to grow, visit it as often as you can and take pictures of it. You can document its growth by just taking a picture of it. So these skunk cabbage will stay nice and green like this just about till the end of summer. That is going to conclude our little spot on the eastern skunk cabbage to see how it has changed since we first looked at it back in March. As always, if you have an environmental topic that you are interested in that you would like us to cover, you can always comment below on this video or message our Facebook page, the Environmental Learning Centers of Connecticut. We'll be back for Friday tomorrow at 10 a.m. on our Facebook page to do another Facebook Live, covering some sights and sounds that we have here on the Indian Rock Nature Preserve. So thanks for tuning in this morning, and we hope you'll join us again tomorrow at 10 a.m.